Welcome to TFP, the Theatrefolk podcast, the place to be for drama teachers, drama students, and theater educators everywhere. I'm Lindsay Price, resident playwright for Theatrefolk. Hello. I hope you're well. Thanks for listening. This is episode 163. You can find any links to this episode in the show notes, which are at theatrefolk.com/episode 163. Okay, so this is a special episode. What do they usually say? A very special episode. The most dramatic podcast ever. Okay, shout out to any and all Bachelorette watchers, or none. Maybe I'm the only one. That's okay. I'm fine. I'm fine with it. I own it. I'm guilty. But I don't know any of their names. So I think that's a good thing. So in this episode, this very special episode, we have a conversation about engaging the non-theater student. So you may have heard me go on about the Drama Teacher Academy. Check the links in the show notes if you haven't. And one thing we do in the DTA is we offer monthly live online PLCs, professional learning communities, for our members. And that's an event where, we have a panel of theater educators and there's a topic and a live chat room for folks where they can talk to each other and ask questions. And it's really wonderful. It's been really a great thing to watch over the past year or so that we've been doing them. It's a great way to get people some information and some interaction with other drama teachers. So why am I telling you this? Well, we have an upcoming DTA special promotion. Woohoo! That's next week. And for that, we're opening the doors to the entire Theatrefolk family for a PLC on Tuesday, August 16th at 8 p.m. Eastern. And that PLC is called Planning Your Season. You've got kids, you've got plays, you've got administrators, you've got an audience. What you don't have is a season. So how do you plan a season that will satisfy everyone? So come on and join us and see what our panel has to say and what your fellow teachers have to say. And now, see, I'm here. I'm circling back here. I'm circling the wagon back as an extra special bonus in this extra special episode, this very special episode. On this podcast right now, in just a few seconds, you're going to hear an audio from a past PLC, engaging the non-theater student. And I know that this is something every theater teacher has to face, right? The student who is dropped into your class, the student who doesn't want to be there, the student who thought drama would be an easy course, an easy A, ha 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 ha, fools. So that is what this podcast is all about. It's a great conversation. You'll love it. And as a heads up, this is from a live video. There's a chat room going on at the same time. So if you hear me refer to it, no, you can't ask a question in the chat room, but that's why. Okay, let's get to it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our PLC. And where we are going to talk tonight about engaging the non-theater student. This has been a big topic, lots of conversation, and I think it's because it's something that everyone is living with, dealing with, and they want to hear what other people have to say. So I'm Lindsay Price, co-founder of DTA, and we have an awesome panel ready to go. First of all, we have, hey, she's waving. We have Lee Marshall from Florida. Hello, Lee.
Hello.
And we also have Matt Banazinski, also from Florida. Hi, Matt.
Hi, how you guys doing tonight?
And we have our second Matt. We have the M's and the L's covered today. We have the Lee and the Lindsay and the Matt and the Matt. We have Matt Webster, our intrepid host leader. Hello, Matt.
Good evening and welcome.
Yay! So I think that it's so funny. We were just talking about this beforehand, and it's something that even though I'm not in the classroom all the time, I go into a classroom to do workshops, and I just always assume that everyone loves theater as much as I do, and that is just not the case. I've been in a classroom where I'm trying to workshop a play and it's not going well, and I had to break it down, and it figured it out. It's because
the students didn't know what a playwright was because it wasn't their world. And I imagine that these are the kinds of things that you guys have to deal with on a regular basis. Matt, what's your dealings with the non-theater student?
The non-theater student is just a fact of our world. Being an elective, being a non-core subject, we get students who find their way to us, sometimes by mistake, sometimes by accident, sometimes by force, and we have them in our classroom, and kind of the unwritten rule that we have is that we deal with the students who walk through our door. I mean, that's just what we do. But I did want to ask Matt and Lee, how is it that you get the non-theater students at your school? Because we were talking a little bit about this before. I know that at my school, students can request on their enrollment sheet if they want to take it, and they can rank 1 to 5 or whatever they want to do. And then sometimes when they don't rank anything and there's slots available, they just drop people in there. But I think different schools have different ways that the non-theater student end up in the theater class. So now, let me throw to Matt and say, Matt, how is it that they end up in your class? What can you tell us?
Well, mine is a lot like yours. We have very limited electives because of testing, because of core subjects, and the majority of my students are in there because either they didn't select anything, or the classes that they wanted to be in, there's no slots available in the times they want. Probably almost 80% of my students have no interest in theater and don't want to be there.
80%?
About that, yeah, and I have 150 students this semester alone. I could honestly make one small class of the kids who really want to be there.
And
but
yet you still smile.
I do, and I start off the first class by telling the kids, even if you're not going to have fun, I am going to have fun because I love doing this. And once they realize that there's no getting away from me being in a good mood, they sort of start falling into place and start getting in a good mood and start trying to enjoy it.
Absolutely.
I think that's an awesome way to start, is that it's because not only are you in that first class, you're going to tell your students what you're expecting of them, but you want to let them know what you're going to give as well. Mm-hmm. You know, how are you going to participate in this class? How are you going to, what are you going to bring to the table? And if you bring to the table, look, I love this, I'm having fun, and that's what this class is going to be, I think that's a wonderful attitude. I love that.
Absolutely. Lee, how do the non-theater students end up in your class?
They get lost on the way to other classes, and I grab them. I teach in a performing arts middle school, and so it's a magnet school, but not like Fame, though I am like Debbie Allen. But so we have some kids, I have a little better ratio than you, on kids who wanted to be in theater class, but I also have a lot that are just kind of don't sign the form, and I can take them. And so, but I have a high school credit class even in middle school, and those are the kids that have already taken Theater 1, passed with an A or B, and definitely want to be there. So that is my gung-ho, I want to be in that class. And then my 4 other classes are a mix of probably about 50-50, I think. Some classes more. Sometimes I get about 70 that want to be there and 30, but about 50-50 of kids that have requested it and kids who just got put in there because they are the luckiest kids in the world. That's what I tell them.
Yes, they are. Now, once you get them, once you're sitting there looking at them, and Matt gave us a little taste of this already, what do you do to grab them? What do you do on that first day? Because we know how important it is day one in the first 5 minutes. And I would tell my students this all the time. When you walk through the door, before you open your mouth the first time, you're the adult, you're the expert, you're the teacher. There is an assumption about you when you walk through the door that you're competent, that this is going to be a good class, that you know what you're doing, and then you open your mouth and you either prove or disprove it. But that first 5 minutes is important to grab those kids and either get them on board or get them with the program. So, Lee, what do you do to get them engaged day one?
I start by talking about what theater is, because a lot of them come in here and they have no idea. It's just on their thing. They can't, and I tell them it's spelled wrong on their sheet because they have an ER on there. So I'm only snobby about that and a million other things. But what I do is I saw that brilliant TED Talk a couple of years ago by Simon Sinek, and I think Lindsay's going to put up a link to it. It talked about the power of why, about understanding why you do something. And we talk about what theater is, and we talk about how we're going to do it. We do those procedures. I love procedures. But more importantly, we talk about why we do it. And I tell them it's because when they walk out every day, they should be a better human being. And when they leave my class at the end of the semester, they should be a better human being. And so we talk about what theater is good for, how it makes you a better human being, a better communicator, a better listener, understanding emotions, understanding your emotions. Mine are middle schoolers. They need to understand their emotions and other people's emotions. And so I have them at the end of our first week make their personal why statement, and they put it on the cover of their notebook. And so I pulled some for y'all today. This is a cover of a notebook of a student, and I love theater because be artistic in many different ways. It makes me a better person because I get to learn fun things. So they make a personal why statement. Why are they in theater class? And we refer to it all the time. We're doing Macbeth this week, and one of our things is, why is learning about Macbeth make you a better person? And so we just talk about that as we go through why for everything. And I tell them they can always ask me why. Whatever we do, you can always ask me, why are we doing this, Miss Marshall? And I will make up improv some why reason for them. So we do a lot about that. Why are we in theater, and why is it going to make you a better person?
Well, I think that why is so important because especially the ones who come in not knowing, not necessarily wanting, to be able to see the value in it and understand the importance of it. The conversations I have with my students deal with a lot of the same things, and I, being in a high school setting, I have the opportunity to sit down with them and say, look, I can almost guarantee you that you will not use algebra every day of your life, and I can almost guarantee you that you will not write formal words and letters and things every day in your life, but I can guarantee you will talk every day of your life, and you will communicate with people every day of your life. And what you can learn in this class will help you be a better communicator, whether you're interviewing for a job, whether you're trying to impress your girlfriend's father, whatever it is you're trying to do with words, this class can help you. So those are great points. Matt, what do? You talked a little bit about just having a good attitude on day one. What do you do to help get them hooked on day one, to get them on board with you?
Well, you had touched on it as well, where I try to make sure my students understand that theater isn't just acting. Theater is everywhere. It's in everyday life, and try to get them to understand how the skills they're going to learn with me can translate later on. You had mentioned the job interview, and I actually have done mock job interviews with students to try to get them to understand how when you're in a job interview, yeah, you're yourself, but you're also acting. You're performing so that you can show the best side of you, the best side of everything, and getting them to realize that sometimes these skills that we're going to learn are things that they might not even realize that they need to understand, need to be able to see and understand the why of what they're doing, and how people show different faces of themselves everywhere. So everything they do is an act. One of the things I always ask them the first day is, do you act the same way around your friends as you do your parents? And then do you act the same way around your teachers? And 9 times out of 10, they say they act differently in front of all 3 groups of people. So whether they realize it or not, they're already acting. They're already doing this. Now I'm giving them a way to have some fun with it and show them how to make it even more practical in life. Because there's no job out there where you're not in front of people.
That idea of practicality is so important. And we had been talking a little bit before we went on air about how some of the classes that we teach allows us to give practical life skills, whether it's through technical theater or communication or whatever, to our students. And when they understand that, when they see the value of that, it really makes a difference. If I can tell just a quick story, when our school first opened up, it was brand new and we had our first graduating class. And one of the high flyers in our school applied for one of the ultra full ride scholarships at some of the state institutions where they pay all 4 years. You get to travel on their dime. You get a computer. I mean, it's a really amazing scholarship that some of these things are. And so she was going through that process and came to my class. She was in one of my classes, and she came to my class one day and said, part of the interview process that we had to sit around a table and debate ideas that were given to us cold. And she said, because of what we did in your class, I stood head and shoulders above everyone else in that room. And she not only got the scholarship she wanted, she was offered a scholarship similar to another institution, and recognized that the skills she learned in my class. And once again, this isn't about acting. This isn't about going on to be a professional actor on stage. This is about using your voice, your body, and your imagination as tools that will serve you no matter what you do. And I think that idea, that buy-in, that explanation, that why, as Lee was saying, why are you here? What can you get from this? Here it is going to turn a lot of those students' head early on. And, it might not get 100%, but that's fine. You're going to make inroads with them, and that's an important thing to do. So those are great things that you bring up.
Hey, I've got there's a comment in the chat room which I think would be a great thing for each of you to sort of speak to. And Krista is talking about that a lot of the resistance she sees is from low self-confidence. What do you do to, to get those students on board of just thinking of better of themselves? That whole notion of just being able to step in front of someone and speak out loud is terrifying for some. Lee, let's start.
One thing that I do from day one is every day we go around the room and they have to tell me in 3 words or less how are they feeling and what is their intention for the next 40 minutes of their life. And so they do that. We go around the room, we do it, we listen to other people, and after about a week and a half of it, I ask them, has that gotten easier for you? And they always say, yes, it has. And I said, look, you are getting up. So many of you in the beginning said, I don't want to speak in front of other people. And I have them fill out a little thing. And so many of them say they don't want to, but yet they've been doing it for 10 days and they realize, oh my gosh, it got easier. And I love that Goethe quote, everything is hard before it is easy. And that's always one of our quotes of the week. And, and we talk about, look, that got easy because you did it every day, just a little bit. And now you trust the people in the room. And so they start to see how quickly they get better at that and how quickly it becomes very natural to stand up and say how you're feeling and what your intention is. So just a little taste of success helps.
I think baby steps are the primary thing. When I teach playwriting, I have to say over and over again, I know this sounds simplistic. It's not simplistic. It is a baby step towards greatness.
Yeah.
Like when I talk about writing monologues, I don't start with writing a monologues. I start with a sentence, like just one little sentence. 5 minutes, and then we're out. And it's amazing. Lee, you hit it on the head. It's the habit, and it is the consistency that builds confidence.
And tricking them. They don't realize they're giving a monologue every day. They're giving a monologue every day. They have no idea. I'm so smart.
Matt B, what do you do for a low self-confidence? And a segue into that, Claire Broom is also talking about too cool kids who think they're too cool. So we have 2 ends of the spectrum: the low self-confidence and the too cool for school.
Well, and I actually do get both of those in my classroom. I think we get all likes in the classroom. One of the things I make sure that the kids know is that, first of all, nothing they do is something I won't do as well. When we start doing monologues, I'm the first one up there performing. When we're doing improv games, when we're doing all this stuff, I'm right there performing with them. And I let them know. And being a middle school teacher, these kids are at such a weird time in their lives. And a lot of them are so afraid to look foolish. And I let them know, yeah, you're going to look foolish some days. We're going to laugh. You guys are going to laugh at me. I also let them know that I actually suffer badly from stage fright. I've been doing theater for so long, but yet I still have stage fright. And trying to get them to understand that, even though I've been doing this for a long time, I still deal with the same issues that they do. And get them to understand, well, when you're up here performing, you're not you. It's the one time you get to be whatever you want. And it sort of helps them. And I do have those that are reluctant. The ones who are too cool, a lot of times, and I do have students who don't have the greatest of home lives, have had run-ins with the police, things like that, have bad reputations with administration, and I try to get them to understand that, hey, in all your other classes, you're going to get in trouble if you get up and act out. And yet in my class, get up, act out. Get it out of your system now, so when you go to your history class, you're not the one getting in trouble because you had all this pent-up energy from having to sit still for so long. And it seems to work real well for me in that trying to get that respect with the kids and letting them know it's okay in here, that it is a safe place. It's all about respect. Yeah, you're going to laugh at me. I'm going to laugh at you. We're all going to laugh together, and we'll all remember what happens. But that's the fun of theater. There's one time in school where they can act out and not get in trouble most of the time. As long as they don't go too far with things.
Yes,
so.
It's actually in my syllabus, Matt, that nobody gets to sit back and laugh at other people. If you make fun of the person on stage now, guess what? In 2 minutes, you're going to be the one on stage getting made fun of. So that idea of respect, of mutual respect, of that you get what you give, and that if you have an attitude of, I'm going to tear these people down. Well, what do you think is going to happen when you stand up there? So let's just put that aside right now. Let's just give what we get, and everyone is on the same footing. And towards that end as well, Lindsay, what I'd say is that we were talking about baby steps. Absolutely. I am a huge proponent of baby steps, especially for the non-theater kid, because it can be daunting. It can be terrifying. Even if they did sign up for it, they don't fully understand what it is we're doing, and they may think it's going to be at a level where they simply cannot do it, and so they'll shut down. So along with those baby steps, I would say you want to look for opportunities for success. You want to give those students the opportunity to do work that isn't, might not be the best theater, might not be the most challenging or rigorous work, but they can succeed at it. And that succeed gets them a high five, gets them a fist bump, gets them a laugh from the audience, and suddenly they sit up a little bit straighter. And they're paying attention a little bit more because they want to see the next thing they can do. And once again, this is another way that the theater classroom is separate from the other classrooms we see around the building. I mean, Matt, you make a great point. In other classrooms, there is right and wrong. There is black and white. And here, if you make big choices, if you're creative in what you do, we still have rules, we still have standards, we still have to, make sure that we don't get out of hand. But by allowing them to tap into that creativity and break rules in a creative way that they get applauded for, suddenly being the outcast makes them even cooler. That the coolness comes not from, look at the trouble I get into, but whoa, I would have never thought about that. How does your brain work that way? And that becomes a whole different idea. And then one more thing I wanted to piggyback on what Matt was saying. The official definition of creative drama talks about the difference between a teacher and a leader. And in the theater classroom, you're considered more of a leader than a teacher, because a leader gets up and goes first. A leader says, follow me. And that's one of the big advantages we have in class, is that you stand up and you do make a fool of yourself, and you do the monologue, you do the scene, you do the improv with them. You make a mistake, and when you make a mistake, you go, oh, there it was, okay, well, now we got that out of our system, and let's go on. And the difference between leadership and teaching is the difference between I stand up here and am the end-all, be-all, and I'm down in the trenches with you, let's all get there together.
Yay, Matt! Yay, Matt! Hey, okay, so do any of you have non-English speaking students, or we call it ESL in Canada, but I'm seeing ELL in the chat room. And how do you deal with that? Matt, Matt B, you were nodding your head. Do you have to deal with that as well?
I do. In most of my classes, I have at least one English language learner. Luckily, I have a very good rapport with our ELL teachers, so they're very supportive. And I always pull those students off to the side in advance and let them know, okay, I understand English is tough for you, and I'm willing to work with them. I let the students know that I'm not rating them all the same way. I know everyone has different ability levels. I'm assessing them against themselves and no one else. I have had a few students who because their English was so poor, they couldn't perform in front of the entire class. Most of my classes are about 30 to 40 kids. So for an English language learner, that's, really a big deal. So what I've done is I've had like administrators come in the morning, set up time in advance with them and let them know that I'm not going to leave them behind. They're not going to be able to use that they can't speak the language as well as an excuse to get out of it. And try to put as much time with them as we can. Let them come in early. Give them a separate setup of people that they're comfortable with to try it in front of before putting them in front of the mob in class. And most of them have done really, really well. So, and they keep coming back, so that's a good sign, I think.
I agree. Lee, do you have to deal with that?
I do a little bit, probably not as much as Matt does. I've done some things like let some students do some monologues in their language and then see if we can guess from their physicality what they were talking about. It's a great physicality exercise, and so we've done a little bit of that, but I've not dealt with it that much. And I've had kids who've been able to find some success in here because there's not as much reading or things that they need more help with, and they enjoy coming in and being able to do that, and even use their own language for things. Or we talk about how would this sound in your language? Can we say that in a way that we know what you're saying? The subtext. Can we get those sorts of things over in your language? It's like doing that game about the visiting foreign poet game where you make up the gibberish language with it, but you get them to do it in their language, and can we guess what your subtext is?
I think that's interesting that there's some people talking. This is a very big conversation in the chat room, and they're talking about how even sometimes ELL students have trouble reading in their own language. And I really like the idea of a subtext exercise where they're not reading something, they're saying something, and everyone has to guess. It's helping them be part of your community and teach a theater element. And yet they're part of the class.
Yeah, Lindsay, I've done what Lee talked about. I have a unit in my class on storytelling. That's one of the kind of the introductions to performances, just have them tell stories. And when people are an ELL or an ESL, I pull them aside. I don't do it publicly. I pull them aside and say, would you feel comfortable in telling the story in your language? And sometimes they go, enthusiastically, yes. Sometimes like, oh boy, they're kind of embarrassed that they do it, but if they're willing to do it, I make it a treat. I mean, I tell the class, here's something that you don't get to see every day. Here's something that's really kind of cool. And we're not going to tell you what the story is. They're going to tell the story, and I want you to be able to tell them what you think the story they were telling in the end is. And it's very much about subtext. It's very much about physicality. It's about vocal work. And then it becomes a learning exercise from both sides, because now you can talk about those things in the classroom. It's like, how did you know what they were talking about? Well, the way she started talking, and got really excited that I thought it was this, and the way that, she got down on all fours. Right. So storytelling is not just what you do with words. Storytelling is what you do physically and vocally and all these other things. And it's a really neat opportunity for cultural exchange at a lot of different levels. And I've heard stories in Spanish, I've heard stories in Hmong, I've heard stories in Korean, I've heard stories in Eritrean. And it's an exciting time when they get to share a little bit of what their culture is, and the class gets to hear something they normally don't get to hear.
Hey, I have another question. Is that okay? So we are talking about how we're going to engage everybody in all of these real world skills that they need. And yet, there is also curriculum that you guys have to follow. And the thing that leaps out most at me is theater history. Like, how do you engage these, your non-theater peeps? How do you engage them when you are dealing with curriculum?
I love theater history, as Lindsay knows, because I'm working on an absurd unit, and it's going to be absurd, not just theater history, but in the classical sense also. But I love theater history because I think there's so many fun things to pull out of that. And I think some of it comes back to that same why question. I ain't got no other ideas for you people. My high school credit class just did Comedia, and so we talked about, why did this make you a better actor? Why did this help you? And so they were able to talk about the kind of the stock characters and the physicality of Comedia and starting to pick that out when they went to the movies and seeing things there. So I think, again, just linking it with that why, and then we're about to do melodrama, which, you know, they really enjoy melodrama. And then absurdism. Why do you think we study it? So that we can say, I don't know, about things. So I think, again, linking it to the why and just how theater history has changed the way people have thought about things over time. Melodrama and Uncle Tom's Cabin and how influential that was, or A Doll's House and how influential that was. So I think showing them how that changes people's minds through theater history. And so for me, that's what gets me excited about that.
Well, as we're seeing right now with Hamilton, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah.
And Matt B, you were talking about how you're using Hamilton in your classroom.
I do use a little bit of Hamilton to get my students involved because a lot of them, when they come in and I mention that we're going to talk musicals, they groan and they do everything they can to avoid those days and try to get them to understand, you know, that there's a musical out there for just about everyone. And I recently showed my new group a clip from Hamilton. And as one of my students was leaving, he looked at me and he goes, "I hate you now." And I was all confused. He goes, "You made me enjoy a musical." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, so I did my job." But there's so much out there for them. And I started off as a history teacher before I was able to convince our administration we need drama classes. So teaching the theater history for me is just a lot of fun. And I do it with showing them how plays have changed throughout the centuries. What was going on in Greek theater? Talk about how it's changed and how it's stayed the same. But just showing them that, you know, theater tells you what's happening in theater, tells you what was happening in the world at those times. What was important to the people, because that's what's theater. Those were the subjects that, for the most part, that they were talking about.
So there's a phrase that I learned that really encompasses this very well, and that is art reflects the truth in society. And one way to look at theater history and history in general as it comes into play in the classroom, what's happening on the stage is a reflection of what's happening in the world at the time and whatever particular culture is generating it. So whether you're finding plays like Angels in America, which talks about the AIDS epidemic of the 80s and how that is a certain point in time, or Enemy of the People and how that reflects what's happening at that time, or ancient Greek theater, or Shakespearean theater, or Commedia dell'arte, any of those types and styles of theater, and absurdist is one of my favorite, and a lot can be talked about that era as well. Things were happening in the world, things were happening in the country, things were happening in society, that playwrights took that information and made it a very distilled version of that information and put it on stage to share with people in a story. So history is not some disconnected thing that we don't have any relation to. It is a reflection of what was happening in the world at that time. And if that play still exists, it's because the themes that were talked about are so universal that I can almost guarantee you we can still talk about them today. And now we've made that connection. Now we've made that link to their lives, to their day, to their culture. And they can start thinking about the stories they want to tell.
My favorite exercise when it comes to theater of the absurd is to not even talk to students about absurd and here are the playwrights and here are the plays and here's the bald soprano and nobody understands what's going on, but to show students a picture of a bombed out town in France, because that's what Samuel Beckett was living through for World War II, and that's what Ionesco was living through, is seeing a completely destroyed world. And it makes there's more connections when you can look at something that's destroyed and go, imagine this is your home. Imagine this is the rubble that you are sitting on of your home. And can you connect to life is meaningless? You know, it's so much easier to connect to the theme when you connect, exactly as you say, when you connect to the point of what's going on and then connecting it to your own life and then getting into the theater of it all.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, let me ask you this question. As challenging as it is to have these students in our class, it's often also very rewarding to have non-theater students in our class. And I'd like to just get a story or two from each of you of what you find rewarding, or an example of when you've had a student who might have been a challenge to begin with, didn't want to be there to begin with, but in the end really kind of blossomed and kind of turned things around for you. Lee, do you have a time like that?
Yes, I do. Just recently I had a language arts teacher who came to me with an essay that one of the students had written, and I had had this student in a semester before, but I don't have her this semester. She was in a semester-long beginning class, and she had written about how theater class had helped her get over anger issues. And this teacher said really she had seen a huge change in her. And I was like, really? Because I didn't see a change when she was in my class very much. But she wrote really well about how, again, one of the things I talk about with the students, you're going to work with everybody in here. And I do remember her saying, oh, I don't work with this person, and this person. My mother has said no. And I said, well, your mother isn't here. And so she had to work with them. And she distinctly said, I learned that I could work with anyone, and that even though I was feeling something, I didn't have to let that feeling consume me. I could get over that feeling and work with anybody. And it has just, and she talked about it had been life-changing for her, and how she was a better person today. I mean, it was exactly what I had been, drilling into them. And it was just so gratifying because I didn't really see that change when she was with me. I think she kind of started putting it all together near the end. And so it was great to see that she was a better human being, exactly what my why was for her. And that had happened while she was in theater class.
What a great lesson. Matt, what do you got?
Oh gosh, I honestly think that my favorite is a student of mine who will be leaving our school at the end of this year who is autistic, and they put him in my class because it was, well, we have nowhere else we can put him, and we want him to try to do something, but I was told from day one, they told me, oh, don't expect him to say anything in class, don't expect him ever to stand up, just put him through, mom doesn't care what he gets in the class, and I just couldn't. I couldn't let that happen, and so I sat with him and I started working with him. And he was lucky enough to be in a class of just some amazing students who really cared about seeing him do well. And last year was my first year with him, and towards the end of the school year, I was walking into school and a mom came running up to me, yelling, asking if I was, who I am, and she goes, I have a problem with you. And I stopped. I go, what do you mean? She goes, my son will not stop talking at home now. And I'm like, okay, who is your child? And she told me his name, and it turns out it was this autistic student who now he is verbal in all of his classes. He is at home, he won't stay quiet anymore. And he's sort of come out of that shell of what it is. And I got to have him again this year, and he wanted to try more difficult pieces. And he knew he might not be able to do it well, but he would try. And just knowing the connection I've had with him and just how much it's changed, his parents were even fighting to get him in a full year class with me, which unfortunately they weren't able to do. But it was just amazing watching him go from this boy who really sat there doing and saying nothing to, whenever I'd ask for volunteers, he was one of the first to always volunteer. He didn't care what it was, and he was right up there. And a lot of the kids started becoming really good friends with him now as well. And he never really had many friends outside of the autism unit. So it was really great for me seeing how he has changed, how he's matured almost. And just the fact that now in his classes he wants to participate. And he does in every class now. So mom and dad are really thrilled that, because of what we were able to do with him, he's now changed as a person, and they're not as worried about him going to high school and not fitting in and having trouble with that change and accepting it.
Wow. Wow. What an amazing, to think about theater as the key that helped unlock this individual and some of the basic life skills that they need. That's inspiring. That's really exciting.
My son seems so blah now.
No, it does not. It does not. It's important. It's everything that you guys do is really important, and we forget, right? We forget how important the things that we do, the little things and the day-to-day things. I have a very similar story to you, Matt, in that I had a relationship with a teacher, and she did a number of my plays over a period of 3 years. And I watched this one student, who on the spectrum student, who at the beginning of my time of seeing him in plays, the teacher, it was a constant conversation with the student to shower. You know, like did you shower today? It was just the basic life skills were not there. And in his final year, he was a mentor. Like, he was mentoring the younger students because he had just grown and was engaged and was chatty and putting his arm around, like, it's the most wonderful thing. And then I was teaching a playwriting class with a very disruptive student, you know, who's very not into theater and not into playwriting. And it just so happened that he wasn't doing any of the exercises, and it just so happened that he accidentally said, you know, I hate writing. I usually do it on a computer. Like, he had a laptop in his special needs classes, and I'm like, well, can you get the laptop? Like, let's use what you use. And he got it, and he started writing. I do automatic writing exercises where I say, grammar means nothing, spelling means nothing. You just have to get the words on the page. And that was like lightning for this kid who had no spelling ability and had no grammar ability. And he just word dumped and was like happy that he wasn't being pressured. And I looked at one of his pieces, and I looked at this kid and went, you are a writer. Did you know this? Did you know that in the middle of this is this beautiful, wonderful, and after I had left, the teacher said that no one had ever told him that. And that he finished a play. He actually committed to getting the formatting and getting all the grammar and getting the spelling, and he finished a play after the end of it. And it's like, it's the little things, you know?
Well, and what I was going to say, Lindsay, is that the reward for me is the student who I had them as a freshman in beginning theater. They were a pain in my backside. They seemed disengaged. They seemed like they didn't care. And then as a junior, they walk by and go, I signed up for your class because I really missed it because you're my favorite teacher. And I went, you hated me. And they say, no, your class was the most fun. You know, it's just, at where I was then, I didn't know, and I was angry about things, and, you know, but your class was different. Your class was fun. And like you were saying, Lindsay, we lose track of that. And especially the day-to-day, guys, the day-to-day when you are facing those 30 students or more, and you're not feeling it, and they're not feeling it, and they're like, why the heck are we here? And you're like, yeah, why the heck are you here? You know, those days are the struggle, but when you put the whole picture together, you often get a really beautiful picture that they appreciate because it's so different, it's so unique, and what you're bringing to them on a day-to-day basis is so different and so unique based on the things we're talking about, based on the ability to express themselves, based on the ability to be creative, based on being in a non-judgmental environment where what you bring, we're going to accept and we're going to mold it. We're not going to say it's necessarily good enough because we want you to be better, but hey, you bring it to the table and we'll help you work it. And that is such a breath of fresh air for these students. And it's one of the things that helps turn them. It's one of the things that makes a non-theater student a theater student. And it's very rewarding when those kids come back, and then maybe even audition for your show, and then maybe really consider themselves to be part of the program. That's one of the most rewarding things.
Awesome. Okay, so as we wrap up, let's leave our folks with some advice. What advice would you give for our teachers who are struggling with non-theater students? How about engaging them? Lee?
I think figure out your personal why. I tell my kids I'm here because, like Matt, I want to have a good time. I think theater is a great time, and I want to do work that matters, and I feel like it does. So that's my personal why, and I have that up for them. And so I think figure out your personal why, share it with the students, and then have them figure out their personal why and put it where they can see it every day on the notebook, somewhere where, hang them up in your room so that they can see it, and hopefully that will inspire them to get to class.
Yeah, we had a question about surviving the day to day, and I think that's one way to do it is know why you're there, right? What is your why? And I like sharing it with it, making sure they know why you're there. Matt B.
I'll piggyback off what she said. Know why you're doing it. But also, I think one of my survival tactics has been be ready to change. The non-theater student, you never know what they're coming in from, and some days you have to throw out the game plan and start over right then and there to make sure that they are engaged. Because some days it's going to be tough, it's going to be different, and you've got to be flexible with them. Know the students and figure out what will catch their attention, but never give up with them. No matter how stubborn they are, just keep going and going and going.
Love it. And Matt Webster.
That idea of flexibility is key. It's just key. We come in with the curriculum and things that we want to learn, but we have more flexibility in our curriculum than most any other subject across the board. And being able to poke in different directions, try this and try that, and you'll see little pockets of your class kind of sit up and get more interested in maybe the design aspect because they have a more artistic side and it's not on stage, maybe more of the storytelling and performing because they're more outgoing, maybe improvisation because they find themselves to be comedians. But having that flexibility and that ear of, okay, what's getting them excited? And here's a student who's never really shown interest, so maybe I can have a little discussion with them about what would they like to see and what would they like to hear. And we have the opportunity over the course of our entire curriculum to touch each and every student where they live. And in being able to do that, that will engage them, because engagement might not be a 24/7, 365-day-a-year proposition. Engagement might work one small piece at a time, one lesson at a time, one engagement at a time. And once you make that engagement, you're putting a piece of the puzzle together on the way to making the large picture that works for your classroom.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. This has been a lovely conversation. I really have enjoyed hearing your stories. I've enjoyed seeing what people are saying in the chat room. The chat room is going to remain open, so you guys continue your discussion there. Allie's going to put up a certificate of attendance for all of you who are there. And I really have to thank our panel. Thank you for your expertise and thank you for your stories. Lee Marshall.
Thank you. This was great.
Good, yes, love it. And Matt Benezinski.
Yep, thank you very much. It was a lot of fun.
Good, and Matt Webster.
Thank you to all of you. Thank you, guys. It was a great conversation tonight.
Awesome. All right, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Matt and Lee and other Matt. Before we go, let's do some Theatrefolk news. So, once again, I want to mention the Theatrefolk Wide PLC on August 16th at 8 p.m. Eastern, planning your season. We've got a link in the show notes for this event so that you can get more information and sign up. Look for the link in the show notes at theatrefolk.com/episode 163. Finally, where can you find this podcast? We post new episodes every second Tuesday at theatrefolk.com and on our Facebook page and Twitter. You can find us on youtube.com/theatrefolk and on the Stitcher app. You can subscribe to TFP on iTunes. All you have to do is search for the word Theatrefolk. And that's where we're going to end. Take care, my friends. Take care.